The hotel hallway smelled like rain-soaked carpet and expensive perfume when the screaming started. A tall blonde woman in a white business suit pounded desperately on the locked hotel door with trembling fists, her breathing uneven, panic spreading across her face like a shadow. Down the dim corridor, two men in dark suits stepped out of the elevator and began walking toward her slowly, calmly, as if they already knew she had nowhere left to run. Her mascara had smudged beneath exhausted eyes, and for one terrifying second, she looked less like a powerful CEO and more like someone who had spent too many nights surviving things nobody ever saw. At the exact moment she realized the keycard no longer worked, a single father carrying his sleepy little daughter stepped out from the opposite side of the hallway. And everything changed. Before we continue, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Stories if you believe every person carries a hidden story the world knows nothing about. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change someone's entire life. The little girl rested her head against her father's shoulder while he carried grocery bags in one hand and an old backpack in the other. He looked tired in the way only struggling parents do, the kind of tiredness that settles into the bones. His gray t-shirt clung slightly from the rain outside, and faint dark circles sat under his eyes, but there was still warmth in his face. The kind of warmth life had tried many times to destroy and failed. He noticed the woman immediately. Not because she was beautiful. Not because she looked rich. But because she looked terrified. The men in suits kept approaching without urgency, and somehow that made it worse. Calm people are often more dangerous than angry ones. The woman backed away from her own hotel room door, clutching her purse tightly against her chest, her lips pale, her hands shaking hard enough that the metal bracelet on her wrist rattled softly in the silence. The father slowed his steps. Every instinct told him not to get involved. He had a daughter to protect. He had spent years learning that trouble often arrived dressed in expensive clothes and polite smiles. But then his little girl lifted her head slightly and whispered something so quietly only he could hear it. She looked scared. That was all it took. The father gently set the grocery bags down beside the wall and walked toward the woman just as the two men closed the distance behind her. The hallway lights buzzed faintly overhead, casting long shadows across the carpet. Somewhere far below, thunder rolled through the city. He asked if she was okay. The woman tried to answer, but no words came out. Her eyes flickered toward the men, then back toward him. Fear sat inside them so deeply it looked ancient. The two men finally stopped a few feet away. One smiled politely and claimed there had been a misunderstanding. Said the woman was simply stressed and needed to come with them. The other kept staring at her like she was property already paid for. The father looked at the little girl in his arms, then back at the woman, and he made a decision that would alter all of their lives forever. Without asking questions, he unlocked his own hotel room door and quietly told her to come inside. The men protested immediately, but something about the father's expression changed. It was not aggression, not courage either. It was exhaustion, the dangerous kind born from someone who has already lost too much and no longer fears difficult people. The woman stepped inside quickly. The father closed the door. Outside, the hallway fell silent again except for distant footsteps and the storm pressing against the windows. Inside the small room, the woman finally collapsed. Emotionally. Not dramatically, not loudly, just slowly. Like a person whose body had spent too long pretending to stay strong. She sat at the edge of the bed with tears running silently down her face while the little girl handed her a juice box from the grocery bag without saying a word. That tiny act nearly broke her completely. For several minutes, nobody spoke. Rain tapped softly against the glass while city lights flickered beyond the hotel window. The father sat cautiously near the door, still unsure whether he had made a terrible mistake. His daughter curled beside him under a blanket, watching the woman carefully with the strange emotional intelligence children sometimes have. Eventually, the truth began to emerge piece by piece. The woman was the CEO of a billion-dollar tech company. To the world, she was untouchable, powerful, brilliant, admired. Magazine covers described her as ruthless. Television interviews called her unstoppable. Employees feared her perfection, but none of those people knew what happened after the cameras disappeared. For almost 2 years, she had been trapped in a quiet nightmare involving business partners who controlled more than her company. They controlled secrets, money, reputations, and people. The men outside the hallway were not bodyguards. They were there to make sure she stayed obedient. Publicly, she smiled through conferences and interviews while privately her life shrank into fear and surveillance. Tonight was the first time she had tried to run. And she failed before she even reached the elevator. The father listened without interrupting. His daughter had already fallen asleep beside him, her small hand still clutching the stuffed rabbit she carried everywhere. Then the woman noticed something framed near the nightstand. A photograph. A woman smiling beside the father and the little girl. His wife. The room changed after that. Pain recognizes pain faster than words ever can. He quietly explained that his wife died 3 years earlier after a long illness that consumed everything they owned. Hospital bills destroyed their savings. He sold their home, took temporary jobs in different cities, stayed in cheap hotels while trying to keep life stable for his daughter. Some nights he skipped meals so she could eat properly. Some nights he sat awake terrified he was failing her. The CEO stared at him in silence. This man had nothing, yet he still opened the door for a stranger. Outside, the storm grew louder. The men eventually disappeared from the hallway, but fear remained sitting inside the room with them. The CEO barely slept that night. Every sound made her flinch awake. Every passing elevator felt like danger returning. But sometime around 3 a.m., she woke up to something she had not felt in years. Peace. The little girl had crawled unknowingly beside her in sleep, resting tiny fingers against her arm like she trusted her completely. And for the first time in a very long time, the CEO cried without trying to hide it. Morning arrived gray and cold. The father prepared instant coffee using the hotel machine while his daughter sat cross-legged on the bed drawing pictures with broken crayons. The CEO stood quietly near the window watching traffic move below like another world entirely. She looked different in daylight. Less polished, more human. Before leaving, she finally admitted something she had never said aloud. She did not know who she was anymore. Not beneath the money, not beneath the pressure, not beneath the image people worshipped online. She had spent so many years becoming powerful that she forgot what safety even felt like. The father never gave speeches or advice. He simply told her she could stay until she figured things out. And somehow, that simple sentence carried more honesty than every executive conversation she had heard in years. If this story is touching your heart so far, comment below where you're watching from and tell us, have you ever met someone who changed your life with a single act of kindness? Days later, the story exploded across national news. The CEO vanished publicly. Her company launched internal investigations. Several executives disappeared from their positions overnight. Legal cases surfaced quietly behind closed doors. People speculated endlessly online, but nobody knew about the small hotel room where a frightened woman finally found enough safety to breathe again. The father never asked for rewards. Never asked for money. In fact, weeks later when she returned to thank him properly, he almost did not recognize her. She looked healthier, stronger, not because her problems disappeared, but because she no longer looked emotionally hunted. She offered him financial help. He refused at first, but then she noticed his daughter's shoes, slightly worn at the front from being used too long, and tears filled her eyes again. Not because of pity, because she finally understood something terrifying about the world. The people carrying the heaviest hearts are often the ones still choosing kindness. Months later, the father and his daughter moved into a small home near the ocean. Nothing extravagant, just peaceful. The little girl finally had her own bedroom painted pale yellow. The father found steady work again. Some evenings they received postcards from different countries signed only with initials, but they always knew who sent them. And somewhere far away, inside glass towers filled with wealth and ambition, a woman who once felt trapped forever still remembered the night a stranger opened a hotel room door without asking who she was. Or who was chasing her. If this story made you feel something real, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Stories like these remind us that sometimes humanity survives quietly, in hallways, in storms, and in the hearts of ordinary people who choose compassion when it would be easier to walk away. And maybe that's what saves people in the end. Not power, not money, just one person willing to say, "Come inside. You're safe here."